The next example is CH3, CH2, CH3 drop down, CH2, CH3 up, CH, CH3, CH2 in bracket 2, and CH3. So let us take a look at that structure and understand how to name such kind of structure. So we have CH3, CH2, C with a drop down of CH3, and up there we have CH2, CH3. Then we have CH, CH3, CH with a drop down of CH3, and then we have CH2, bracket 2, and lastly CH3. So how do we name this compound? In order not to make us get confused, as a bright student, these are structures that may be given to you in any of your exams in order to confuse you. But as a bright student, you ought to understand that they're only trying to pull your legs. So you ought to be smart. You ought to be smart by making them understand that you know where they are coming from. This is CH2, CH2, then CH3. That is what it implies. Don't be fidgeting because of this. This is simply this. So what it simply tells us is that there are two CH2s in that structure. That is what it simply tells us. There are two CH2s. Only they choose to put one CH2 in a bracket and then place the two outside. So what you just need to do is, like in mathematics, expand it. That is just what, open up the bracket. And when you open the bracket, you have your two CH2s. So that is just what we have there. Now, how do we go about identifying our parent chain? How do we go about identifying the parent chain? That is the first question. So to identify our parent chain, as you can see, since we've opened the bracket, our parent chain seems to be this. Our parent chain seems to be this. So if that is the parent chain, it means every other species outside this parent chain will become side chains. So if that is the case, we need to become smart, play smart, and know how to go with that. Now, I'd like us to also understand that other students may choose to take their counting differently. So don't be afraid of looking for different ways of taking your counting. Don't be afraid of looking for different ways to take your counting. So looking at this, we have, in the parent chain we have just drawn, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 carbon atoms. Now, I want to make it clear that some students may also choose to go this way. It is possible that a student may choose to take his counting or her counting this way. CH3, CH2, C, CH3, CH2, CH3, CH, CH3. After this class, I believe strongly that you will have become used to naming organic compounds without fear. Now, looking at what we have on the board, a student may choose to go this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you see that a student may choose to go this way. Can you see that? So I'd like you to understand that taking your parent chain can be done in different ways. And this is now side chain, side chain, side chain, 3 side chains. As we can see here too, this is side chain 1, side chain 2, side chain, 3 side chains. So whichever you choose to take is not a problem. You may choose to go in another route that looks like S shape or L shape or M shape or U shape, or you may choose to go the straight shape. Whichever way, whichever route, whichever shape you choose to take your counting for the parent chain, in as far as it is the longest continuous chain, you don't have any problem. Nevertheless, always still abide by the rule which says that if there are different possibilities for getting a parent chain, always stick with the straight one for simplicity. That is just it. Always stick with the straight one for simplicity. So I will always tell you and advise strongly that you stick with the straight chains for simplicity so that we don't get things mixed up. But as you become stronger in organic chemistry, you may choose to manipulate the way you wish. But for now, as a learner, you can just stick to the straight chain rule. If there are different possibilities of getting your parent chain, always stick to the straight chain. So looking at what we have on the board, we have the straight chain, which is 7 carbon atoms. And we have 3 side chains. And these 3 side chains, we have 2 methyl and 1 ethyl. Ethyl is up and the 2 methyls are down. The next step is number the parent chain. How do we number our parent chain? The rule says that numbering is done in such a way that the side chains should be given the lowest possible number. So, if we choose to go from the left-hand side, if we choose to take our counting from the left-hand side, this will become carbon 1. Here I have carbon 2, carbon 3, carbon 4, 5, 6, and 7. So, it implies that one of the methyls is attached to carbon 3 and the ethyl is also attached to carbon 3 and the second methyl is attached to carbon 4. So if this is the case, in numbering my parent chain from the left hand side, I have successfully attached these side chains to the parent chain. And now let us proceed to looking at how to name this compound. Since there are 7 carbon atoms, of course, the name of this hydrocarbon, beginning from the left-hand side, we end with heptane, heptane. So, since my ethyl is attached to carbon 3, it means this is going to be 3-ethyl, 3-ethyl. Next is 3,4 hyphen dimethyl. Can you see that? And last of all, heptane, heptane. So, this is what it's going to be. Counting from the left-hand side, we have 3-ethyl because ethyl is attached to the third carbon, counting from the left-hand side. 3,4-dimethyl. Why is it 3,4? Because one of the methyls is also attached to carbon 3. And the immediate methyl is attached to carbon 4. And since there are two methyls there, we ought to indicate them as dimethyl, and also indicate the position where they fall under, 3, 4. And then we end it with the name of the parent chain, which is heptane. And this is actually what its name ought to be. Now let us take a look at if we choose to come from the right hand side. If we choose to start numbering from the right hand side, what would it have been? Let us look at it and compare to see which is correct. This would be carbon 1. This would be carbon 2. This is carbon 3. This would be carbon 4. Carbon 4. This is carbon 5. Here is 6. And lastly, 7. So, if we choose to come from the right hand side, what it simply implies is that the first methyl will fall under carbon 4. The second methyl will also fall under carbon 5. Equally, the ethyl falls under carbon 5. So what it simply implies is that this is going to be 5 ethyl, 4, 5 dimethyl heptane. Why is this so? It is so because the ethyl comes first alphabetically and it falls under carbon 5. So it has the name 5-ethyl. Now, the two methyls that are seen there falls under carbon 4 and carbon 5. So for that reason, they ought to also be known as 4,5 dimethyl because there are two of them, and then we end with heptane. Now looking at the naming, if we are to come from the left, and looking at the naming if we are to come from the right, which is correct, automatically we can say that coming from the left hand side is correct and coming from the right hand side is wrong, because it will give higher numbers to the side chain as compared to coming from the left hand side. So this is how to name any given hydrocarbon.